Let me put you on game. Don't listen to people who lose or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a f*** what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed, go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pursuit of Wealth podcast. Today our guest is Mr. Jace Wright. If you guys are from Shelley, you probably know Jace. Or if you ever passed through Shelley, you've probably seen his billboard right in front of that new ICCU building going up in Shelley. So we always call Jace Mr. Idaho Falls, Mr. Shelley, because he's so intertwined with the community in Shelley, which I think is awesome. But today we're going to dive into kind of Jace's story. He's been licensed for 2 years now. Used to manage a kind of restaurant or retail chain. And we'll dive into all the fun and juicy stories you have from that stuff. But where did things start for you? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned Shelley. Shelley's where I was born and raised. I think I'm 4th or 5th gen myself. My wife is 4th or 5th gen.
Okay.
Yeah. Some highlights about it. Like my grandpa was a big time coach in Shelley. The high school gym's named after him.
Really?
So I have a lot of pride, obviously, with that.
What did he coach?
Basketball.
Okay.
So girls basketball, boys basketball. I think he's probably got 4 or 5 state titles, but he's been to state like 12 to 14 times.
Okay.
Passed away in 97. Pancreatic cancer. But yeah, so my wife's family, big time Shelley people, been there a long time. So we can't seem to get away. We tried, but always keep coming back.
Well, that makes sense, dude, because you've been going to the boys and girls state basketball tournaments the last few weekends. I thought you were just a big basketball fan, but that kind of shines a little bit of light on why you're actually going to those things. That's awesome.
Yep.
I didn't know that. So deep roots into Shelley. So you born and raised here. Have you spent your whole life here? Have you gone outside of Shelley at all?
So after my wife and I got married, we lived in Utah for about a year. She attended Utah Valley University for dance. I did some online stuff. But then kind of, you mentioned the restaurant. We were planning on moving back, and that restaurant opened up here in Idaho Falls, and that's kind of how that story began. But we were only in Utah for about a year. Okay. And then Idaho Falls for roughly 3.
Okay.
And then back to Shelley.
Yep. Reeled him back in real quick.
Yeah.
So you're going to school. How was that for you?
School was never for me. I did online. Didn't finish anything. My wife got her just bachelor's or associates, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
2-year degree.
Like 2-year degree for her. I'm an uneducated man, so.
Hey, but you're killing it. The interesting thing that I found, most of the people that I've done a podcast with, they're in sales or they're in business, and it's a common theme. I only finished 2 years of college as well. It wasn't that I was bad at school. I just didn't see a ton of value in it. Again, I was only in kind of my prereqs, just generals and stuff like that. But I never understood taking an entrepreneurship class or a business class from a teacher that maybe has never started a business or never been an entrepreneur.
Right.
How they can read you out of the textbook, but the business world is changing so fast. My wife, she got her degree in marketing, and she's like, I've not utilized anything that I learned to get my marketing degree. Because the marketing industry is changing so fast. She's like, they weren't teaching us like how to run Facebook ads and all these kind of, social media marketing and, being an influencer and influencer marketing. They're like, you want your logos to be with the color red because that's a bold color. And, studies have found that red tracks. It's like, okay, that is so far out the window that so it's just interesting because I don't think you necessarily need school to be successful nowadays. And it tends to be those that are successful in like sales, or like are really big people tend to not like school that much or don't go to school. So
yeah, my whole mentality with school, and this isn't a bash on school necessarily. Yeah. School's essential if you want to do like doctor or, something in the medical field or something like that. But outside of that, school is essentially geared to put you in a system of employment. Yep. I never wanted to be an employee. So that's why school was never an option.
Never met. Yeah. No, it's actually a great point. It's like what school does teach is how to give tasks and then get tasks done kind of thing. And I think that's what your degree shows is like, hey, I can follow tasks and I can get things done and I can study and pass a test.
Right.
You know what I mean? doesn't teach you, how do you buy a house and what are your interest rates and how do you make money or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know like very educated people that don't understand real estate.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand how to run a business, but they're very well educated.
Yep.
And so it's just different worlds. And I think you're absolutely right. If you're a doctor, lawyer, anything like that, yeah, you need school because that's what they're going to teach you. They're going to teach you how to be that. But if you're going into business, into sales, spend 4 years, working under somebody that's running a business.
Absolutely.
And learn from them.
Yep.
If you're going into sales, spend 4 years, interning with salespeople, learning the sales industry. Because I feel like you're going to, one, it's not going to cost you as much. Two, you're going to learn way more,
right.
In person doing that stuff than I think you could learn from a school. But I digress.
Yeah.
I digress. So you come back to Idaho Falls. What brings you back to Idaho Falls?
So I was actually just getting done with a job interview. I was going to be a kind of a marketing consultant for an apartment complex.
Okay.
And I was going to travel and go and try to get big businesses to have their employees stay at these apartment complexes.
Interesting.
And okay. I was on my way home from the interview, got a call that I got the job.
Yeah.
Called my wife to tell her that I got the job. And she's like, I want to move home. And I'm like, okay. And so I called him back, said, thank you, but we're going to move home before I even got home and talked to my wife. She just kind of made that decision. And my goal is to just, obviously do what I can to make my wife happy and I'll make it work. So I Googled easy turnover jobs for jobs that wouldn't necessarily miss me after I left, and food came up. So I got in touch with a company called Kneader's Bakery and Cafe located out of Utah.
Yep.
Worked for them for the next about 3.5 months. And
in Utah.
Okay. Our plan was to move home after she finished school. So while she was finishing school, I worked for Kneader's and just kind of, I guess, grew pretty quickly there, became a trainer for them pretty fast. But then the story behind that is I knew a location was opening up here in Idaho Falls. I knew I was coming back. I am 21 at the time.
Okay.
And so
you're a young buck.
Super young, just working the drive-through at this restaurant. But I went to the owners. I said, hey, I want to meet with you. And I went and I said, I want that store. How do I get it? And they're like, no, you're way too young. We're not going to give it to you. That we already have somebody in place.
Yeah.
So that person came and was training at the store, and they started training me to maybe kind of be an assistant at that point.
It's like an assistant manager at the new store. Okay.
So, training me to do something like that. In that process, I went to Texas for them to help open up a store just to train people there. And then moved back home and kind of waited. And during that process, the person that they had lined up for the GM role quit. So I went to him again and said, okay, like I now know all of this stuff that you've trained me for. I want this store. And again, they told me no and brought on a new person we're about a month away from opening the store at this point.
Okay.
They brought someone new, no previous experience with Kneaders at all. But they wanted me to train her on site. So they were going to train her for the month in Utah.
So you're the assistant manager that they won't give the manager role to, but you've got to train the manager.
Yes.
Oh, fun. Yeah. You're like, giddy up. Okay.
So at that point I was still going to school. So it was beneficial for me because I told them, I said, okay, well, I got school to do. And so they offered to help with that, which was great.
Yeah.
Then store opening happens, all that stuff. And a week into it, this individual quit as well. So for the third time, I went to him and I said, okay, like you guys, you're out of options. I now have trained, been with this person. We started training on site, trained for a month.
Yep.
So they finally agreed and the rest is history after that. So for the next 5 years, I ran the Kneader's Bakery and Cafe here in Idaho Falls.
Wow. That's incredible. So at 21, you were 21 when you took that over?
At the time, they said I was the youngest GM they've ever had. So obviously that was nice to hear. But I think since then they've had someone younger come in, which I guess they're just trying to go for younger people.
Yeah. Now it's something they're prideful of. Like, oh yeah, we got the youngest one. That's crazy, man. Like one thing comes to mind is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like you just kept bugging them, A lot of people would have been like that first initial. A lot of people would have probably never asked that first question, being young and that new into the company, to ask for that role.
Right.
A lot of people don't want that responsibility, and they're just nervous to ask for something like that. You asked, you got shut down, and then you came back and you asked, you got shut down. You came back and you asked, and throughout that process, you just kept getting better And obviously, like, you could have said no when they asked you to go out to Texas, but saw it as probably a learning opportunity for you. You know, that it was another experience that you'd have for that future ask that you might want to make again.
Right.
I love that. A lot of people would have just gave up and been like, all right, fine. They're not going to let me be a manager until I'm older. You just kept pushing. Yeah.
In the back of my head, it was more of just creating enough value to when the question finally came up again that they couldn't tell me no.
There was, so, it was inevitable.
Yeah.
It was going to happen. That's awesome. So what'd you learn being a manager of a food business for 5 years?
Quite a bit, man. Food's difficult. You know, you wake up early, you go home late, there's high stress. You know, the type of employees that you have are typically, you know, people in high school or young college students. So you're working around school schedules and, you know, young kids that want to, you know, go on trips and go to the ski hill and all that stuff versus, you know, in a different establishment, you might be dealing with some people who have a little more set schedules or, you know, focus a little more on work, or they're providing for someone.
A lot of the times people that are in that don't see it as a career.
Right.
Like, this is just a job that I have. That's hard.
Yeah. So that was difficult, but I mean, I learned quickly how to manage stress.
Yep.
How to know that, like, you just got to push through it and figure it out, make it happen. You know, we were probably we were pretty far from the corporate, you know, headquarters, and because of how good we were doing right out of the gate, corporate didn't really have us on their radar. And so I was kind of it was up to me to just make it happen and get it done. So like my first holiday season was insane. You know, we do lots of pies and rolls and all that stuff, and prepping for that was unreal.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was one of those that just, you go and you make it happen, learn from your mistakes, and keep on going.
Next year's better.
Yep.
I think that I've worked in the food industry. You know, one of my first jobs was at like Panda Express in high school. And I was that kid. I was a kid that, like, hey, I call out for this, or I want to go to the ski hill with my buddies, or like, so I can't imagine the stress as a manager. I mean, it's hard to manage people anyway when they're not people that aren't looking at this as a career. You know what I mean? And so to deal with that at such a young age too was probably pretty frustrating, but taught you a lot of lessons in managing people. So why did you end up leaving? Did you just not enjoy managing Kneaders, or was it long-term plan to just kind of work there and grow with the company, or what was your?
So it was kind of both. So again, it started out in Utah as just something temporary, and then it quickly grew to something that could be a little more sustainable. One of the mistakes, and I call it a mistake, it was a good thing, but it was also a mistake. One of the mistakes I did is at the time bought a house, and that's where being in the corporate world, it gets you, because you lock yourself into, you have to have that paycheck. And so whether I wanted to continue to do it or not, I was stuck. And so did I ever want it to be my career? No. I wanted it to be pretty short term, but they were paying me just enough, and my life was growing with it. You know, we had our first kid, we bought a house, we have a new car. You can't step away and try something new when that happens. And so that's where it became a little difficult. So that's why I stayed probably as long as I did.
Yeah. But
I was always trying, side hustles to try to get extra income to give me a way out.
Got it.
So
that's super valuable, because a lot of people don't realize that. There's this level of comfort that you get into, and a lot of people, that's where, I don't want to say they ruin their life, but they get stuck, and they're in this zone. It's like this comfortable zone of your job. You don't hate your job. Like, your job is just good enough. Your pay is just good enough. Your life is just good enough that you're not triggered to do anything. It's almost like it's almost more beneficial to be into something that's not good enough, because that'll push you to seek things that are better.
Right.
Versus being in this zone of just comfort and that's what corporate employers are looking for, is like, how much do we need to give them to just be enough for them to stay, but not, too much. And so a lot of people, I think I would rather see somebody struggle and go through that and then push to do something more with their life than I've seen a lot of people that have worked jobs that they don't like, for 40 years, but it was just enough. And you know, they were hoping out they were waiting for the pension, waiting for the retirement.
Yep.
And it's like, man, but did you, was it worth it? I don't know.
And the questions really never stopped for me. I kept asking, you know, cause I thrive on growth and potential income opportunity. And in the corporate world, you're capped at a certain point, even as a GM.
Yep.
The only way that they would tell me that I could make more is if my restaurant did better. And we're in the top 10.
Yeah. Okay.
And so like,
you're like, the ceiling's there.
Yeah. The ceiling's kind of there. And, you know, I kept asking them, like, is there opportunity to partnership? Cause I had no equity or anything like that. I kept looking for stuff like that.
Yep.
And that opportunity was never there, which is why my interest started decreasing pretty drastically. And my focuses started going other places.
Got it.
And trying to do side hustles. I think if they would have had an opportunity to allow it to make it mine and to grow it, I maybe would have stayed a little bit longer. I mean, I don't like food, but the growth of the business would have probably kept me.
And that's, another interesting thing about when you're growing a company, your vision's got to be big enough that there's growth for the people that are in your organization.
Right.
And so it sounded like, and from, you know, we've had previous conversations about that. It sounded like the owners being more, it's family owned, right? It's not like franchised.
They did franchise it, but then kind of the story behind that is they bought it all back because they wanted to have it a little more controlled. Yeah.
And so it sounded like from what you've told me that they weren't super growth. They didn't want to blow this up like a McDonald's.
No.
And so it's like they didn't have a lot of growth, and they're probably doing fine. So they didn't see like why they needed to grow, but that hurts the people that are in the organization that ideally, like at such a young age, running a store, like you could have been a very valuable asset to them over the next 20 years, but they didn't have enough vision to keep you within that, which sucks.
Yeah. Everybody's got their own strategy, their own business, you know, stuff. And I mean, they were great. I don't want this to, be a bash on them by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But, I outgrew them is how I like to put it.
For sure.
You know, is I just wanted more. I saw myself being my own business owner, and when that didn't happen, that's where I started looking other places.
So what piqued your interest into real estate?
So I've got a little bit of sales background. For a little bit in Utah when my wife and I lived there, I did do some sales.
Door-to-door sales, or what kind of sales?
This was just kind of in phone call. Just I was in a call center.
Yep.
And we were offering computer fixes to people that needed help.
Okay.
The problem with sales is, for me, at least door-to-door and the on-call ones that I've experienced, is there's a lot of over-promising and under-delivering.
Yep.
Not all of them. I know some great door-to-door salespeople that are awesome, but in the experience that I've had, especially with this first one, they're like an average person makes X amount of dollars.
Yep.
I was the number one salesman and I made way less than that.
Yeah.
And so sales was good because I knew I could control it.
Yep.
But I didn't like door-to-door. I didn't like call center. My uncle had just started real estate.
Okay.
And so I was watching him and just kind of seeing how that went. That quickly piqued my interest.
Got it.
Simply because you don't have to try to sell someone on a home or convince them why they need to buy a home.
Yep.
They already want the home. You just need to be the one to help them and give them the value to educate them on a good purchase and all of that stuff. So that type of sales, car industry is another one that kind of piqued my interest. I never got into it, but those two types I think were what was really attractive to me.
More being a sales where you're more of an advisor.
Correct.
Because you know, before I even looked in real estate, I was thinking about going like the financial advisor route, which is still sales.
Right.
You're just selling them on using you as their advisor. And I think that's the same thing with real estate. You're selling them on using you as their real estate advisor.
Right.
Not necessarily selling them the home. And I think a lot of agents get confused about that. But so your uncle just started. I think that's super powerful because, again, you're a product of your environment. And I said a lot, but it's like if you weren't surrounded by him or seen that, you might not have ever put really real estate on your radar. Maybe you'd gone into car sales.
Right.
Because maybe that would have been easier for you to get into or easier for you to learn about. But maybe you saw your uncle in what he was doing and was like, hey, I could probably do something similar to that. So when did you get licensed?
So I started class. I took some PTO from Kneaders and did the 2-week class. and did that. And I got licensed, I believe, in September of 2019.
Okay. So it'll be 3 years this year.
Yep.
Okay.
It'll be 3 years this year. And yeah, just started doing real estate, just kind of on the side while I was doing Kneaders. They quickly found out and didn't like it, understandably. They want me to grow their business. Kind of gave me an ultimatum, said, okay, it's either us or real estate. I had told my district manager at the time, I'll finish the holidays with you, but after that, I'm going to go. Holidays is the craziest time for Kneaders, so that's why I wanted to stay. And in preparation for that, we put our house on the market because I knew that starting a new business was going to be a little bit stressful. I didn't want to have to worry about a mortgage.
Smart.
And so we put our house on the market, and the day after our house closed, I went to work, and Kneaders walked in and said, we don't even want you to stay for the holidays. You're done. And I walked out, and that was it. So now I'm a full-time real estate agent.
What a scary jump. Like, a lot of people would be so afraid to make that jump. Mm-hmm. And I think you did the right thing, given the time of the market too. Like, you probably had some decent equity in your home. You saw that as kind of a security blanket to, hey, let's get the biggest liability we have. And I'm going to call it a liability right now because it wasn't bringing you in any money.
Right.
A lot of people debate, whether a house is an asset or liability, but let's call it a liability now. Let's get rid of that biggest liability, our biggest monthly payment. Let's get the cash out of that, have it in the savings, and let me go out and see what I can do. A lot of people wouldn't do that. Especially, did you have kids at the time?
Yeah, so we just had our second kid at the time.
That adds even more.
Yeah, so now we got 2 kids, and the house, like you said, the equity was great because it helped us eliminate all debt.
Yeah.
So it was a liability in the sense that I knew if I didn't sell anything for the next 3 or 4 months, I would have had to sell anyways, or gotten help from family or whatever.
Yep.
So I knew it was a liability for that reason. Obviously, like you said, it's different on the situation.
Yeah.
But I knew that we couldn't afford to not have an income for 3 months and still keep the house. So that's why we prepped for it. And then with our second kid there was obviously that stress. So luckily my in-laws allowed us to move into their basement. I told them, give me a year. And I said, after a year, I'll be out of your basement and up and running. And so that's what we did.
That's incredible, man. Yeah. I love stories like that. Similar, like when I got into real estate, I took out a 15-month 0-interest credit card, and I paid for all my expenses with that credit card. And like at the time, I could only get approved for like $3,000 or $3,500 bucks. So I was, pretty young. I think I was only 20 or 21. Really no credit history. So anyway, I pulled that out and basically said, okay, I got 15 months to do something so I can pay off this credit card and like start paying for my expenses. And at the time we were living in an apartment, and within 3 years, our life has changed dramatically.
It's crazy.
It's crazy how just taking that leap, and then dedicating 1, 2, 3 years of your life to focusing on something and really just diving as deep as you can into it can really change the trajectory of your life. Right. I think about it, like if I hadn't done that, what would I be doing right now? I was working at the bank at the time. I was working at Wells Fargo. Maybe I'd still be at Wells Fargo 5 years later. And what would my income potential be there? It wouldn't be that great, I don't think, of the roadmap that I had saw. And similar to you, it's like if you're like, hey, I've got 2 kids now. We can't sell the house. I can't take this risk. It's just, I'm not going to bet on myself. Right. You'd be at Kneaders for another 5 years. And how different would your life look?
And the hard part is trying to get over the idea that it felt and looked like to society that we were taking a step back.
Yep.
We had the house, we had a nice car, we had 2 kids, and we kind of just threw all that away. Yep. And to the outside world, I'm now in my in-laws' basement, got fired from my job. Yeah. That took some conversations with the wife as far as, no, this isn't a step back. This is a step forward. Yeah. This is what's going to project our life to, be better. Level. Yeah, the next level. And in the first year, I made just as much as I did at Kneaders. But knowing that first year was a foundation for the following year to make more. Yeah.
What I love is you had to swallow your pride and your ego. My business coach says, outcome over ego. Right. Like, what is the outcome that you're looking for? And a lot of people let their ego hold them back. Like, we're not going to go live with our parents' basement. because, you know, what are our friends going to think? Oh, we're selling our house, we're selling our cars, living in a basement. Like, what are they going to think's going wrong? It's like, who cares? It's like, do what you think is best for you to get to the outcome that you want to achieve. Because I can guarantee in like 5-10 years, they're all going to be like, man, how'd you do it, Jace? Oh, it all happened overnight. Like, it's like, no, I had to sacrifice a lot up front to get there. I love that. That's super powerful. So first year in real estate, you made as much as you were at Kneader's, which is great. I mean, getting into real estate, how long did it take you to get your first deal under contract?
So it took me probably a month and a half, 2 months to get my first deal done.
Were you getting nervous?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, going and showing your first house and stuff and not really knowing what you're doing. And with the brokerage I partnered with, they were out of Boise. And so, because my uncle lives over there, he kind of had that connection there.
Yep.
Great brokerage, loved him, but I was the only one over here. So I had no shadow. Yeah. I remember going to Boise to go to an open house with them to just learn what to talk about with people. Wow. But going on my own showings, you know, from day one, I was by myself. So it was definitely intimidating.
Was the wife getting nervous 2 months in, not having a paycheck?
There were some conversations we had with my wife and my in-laws on like, we haven't really seen much. He's golfing every morning. Why is he golfing and not working? And, you know, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a conversation of like, just let it happen. One of the best things my previous broker told me is, as a real estate agent, you need to learn how to work for free and get that in your head that you're going to feel like you're working for free about 80% of the time.
Yep.
Cause you're going to go show houses. You're going to go do all this stuff and not see a paycheck for a while, but then it's going to hit you like crazy 1 month.
Yeah.
And that was true.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. That was true.
That's so true. I haven't thought about it that way. You know, I say a lot of the times like, hey, the work you're doing now is going to pay off in 90 days, but I think it's a similar concept.
Yep.
It's probably easier for agents to understand. Like, I'm working for free right now, but it's going to come back later.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing the right things. Mm-hmm. So second year, how did your second year look in real estate?
Second year went really good. Like I said, had the foundation built, kind of at that point knew what I was doing, felt comfortable and confident with, you know, talking to people and solving problems. And that's when, you know, the market is just going nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, second year, we doubled what I did in my first year, which is nice and fun. And yeah, it definitely kept us busy. We opened up an office in Shelley.
Okay.
Just my own personal office. It was in like a storage closet of a storage unit complex. We saw it was
you sure this is an office?
Yes, we made it an office. It was officially on file at the city. So, but yeah, it was a storage, you know, closet for a storage unit complex that we renovated and, you know, just kind of turned it into my own little personal space to, you know, step out of the house, have a place to go. And, it was good. It was fun.
And so starting into now you're halfway into year 3 about?
Yeah, about halfway.
What's been kind of the biggest lessons you've learned your first 2 years in real estate?
You know, I think it's said a lot in real estate that there's a lot of glamour with being your own boss and creating your own schedule, but then there's also a huge responsibility. You know, when you're not making it, you have no one else to blame.
Yep.
At Kneader's, when I wasn't making as much as I wanted, it was easy to blame the owners and the company because I felt like I deserved more and they weren't giving it to me. Yep. And there was no way I could make more necessarily. It's not that way with sales and real estate. The only person you have to blame is yourself and the amount of work that you put in. And so I think that was the biggest lesson I learned as far as that goes.
Yeah.
That the sky's the limit when it comes to real estate, and it's all on you.
The sky's the limit, and like the floor is a real thing to be aware of.
Absolutely.
Because at a corporate job, it's like you are capped with a ceiling, but typically like they have you propped up from the floor, like you're going to get at least this. Right. You have a base.
Salary's a real comforting thing.
So, it's like real estate. There is no ceiling, but there's a legitimate floor where you could make $0 for a while.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't understand that. They think that I'm just going to get into real estate and sell, 20 houses and life's going to be awesome. I'm going to golf every morning, and then I'm going to go to lunch, and then I'm going to gossip like they do on Selling Sunset and sell a multi-million-dollar home, and I'm good for the year.
It's easy.
It's like, that's definitely not the case.
Right.
What was your idea of real estate? How did you think it was going to be? And was it different than you thought?
Yeah, I think it was different than what I thought. I had the mentality of knowing that, it was on me. I needed to go put in the work, and knowing that it would take time. Every great thing takes time.
Absolutely.
And a good example of that is my dad. He had a passion for, he trades currencies.
Okay.
He did that for 15 years and didn't really make much, but kept going. And I would see family members come in, in year 10 or year 12 that he's in it, and expect to know and make as much as he is that very year.
Yep.
It bothered me. And so I'm like, going into real estate, I wasn't going to compare myself to anybody, because I knew that I can only compare myself to myself. I have my first year. That's what I can compare it to. Can I do what I did my first year, my second year, or more? I wasn't going to compare it to someone who'd been in the industry 20 years, because that's unfair. That's unfair to them, and it's almost an insult to them that I feel like I should deserve that.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah. And so I knew I needed to put in the work, and I was ready to put in the work. I did not expect the market to be so difficult. I felt like real estate should be a time thing, like where you actually have time to think about your decision.
Yep.
I did, and people had an hour to think about their.
Yeah, you got in at a wild time.
Yeah, I got in when it was literally, hey, you like this house? Okay, if you do, you have 2 hours to think about your decision. We're probably gonna have to go above asking.
Oh yeah, that inspection thing we talked about. You're not gonna be able to do that.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to do that, and that was hard, because
for sure.
You don't want to do that, because you don't want to sound like you're trying to just sell someone a home as quickly as you can.
Yep.
But you're also in the position that you want to do the best for your client. And if they like the house, you got to tell them how to get in it.
100%.
And so it was a fine line there that was
pretty
fun.
This weird game. Yeah, it was very hard, even as a seasoned agent. It was like I'd only been licensed for probably 3 years at that time, or 4 years. But it felt like you're at risk telling a client that they shouldn't get an inspection, or that they're going to have to come above asking price. It's like, that wasn't normal.
Right.
But also, if I don't advise them on these, basically it's your choice. I know that there's probably other buyers that are going to come in with these kind of terms. If we want the best shot, we're going to probably have to compete with those terms. Mm-hmm. Is it something you're okay with? I mean, I saw agents that played that game for way too long. Like, hey, waive your inspection. It's like, okay, you don't need to be waiving an inspection right now.
Right.
Like, no, that train is sailed. And buyers were still doing that. And I think that was just a lack of responsibility on the agent side.
Right.
But there was a period in time when that was a very real thing of, hey, we're not trying to do this to push you. But I also, don't want you to be upset with me if I'm not educating you on how we can actually stand a chance at getting this home, if that's what you guys want. Mm-hmm. It was, and for you to get thrown in that market as a new agent, it was probably, pretty wild.
It was crazy. It was crazy
to understand what to do. But, going back to that, you're only, did you have resources from the brokers that you're with? Did you have a mentor when you got started? Was it just your broker?
Yeah. So the brokerage was really small. So it was the broker, and then probably roughly about 4 to 5 agents.
Okay.
Including me and my uncle.
Okay.
And so, yes, he was a huge mentor, because it was so small. So I could go to him with any questions, ask about contracts. He had videos. We communicated on FaceTime and Marco Polo all the time.
Good.
So that was really, really helpful, because he was always there to answer questions. As far as the source for potential income, like lead flow and all of that stuff, that's where I felt like it lacked a little bit.
For sure.
They provided it, but it wasn't a lot.
Got it.
And so that, that encompassed with my desire again to grow.
Yeah.
And to want to expand and all that stuff. That's kind of where I think things started. Again, me searching for another opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I met with him once a quarter and asked the same questions I asked Kneaders. Just, how do I do this? How can I get equity?
Yeah.
How can we grow this brokerage? And how can I be a part of it?
For sure.
And I just felt like a lot of it was getting shut down, and, it was all going to be on me and all of that stuff. And that's where it got hard.
Got it. And the reason I asked the mentor question is because I advise a lot of agents. If you're getting into real estate and you're new, join a team or you got to find a mentor.
Yep.
Because if you got thrown in that market and you didn't have some mentor or somebody to lean on, and it's like, yeah, every brokerage has a broker, but like if you're at a large brokerage where there's 200 plus agents, like how much of a mentor can that broker really be to you?
Right.
He's got so many fires that they're putting out. And so that's where it's, join maybe a team within that larger brokerage or something like that so that you can get a more like a closer experience with a mentor to really understand the industry your first year. So it was probably a really good thing that you went to a smaller brokerage where you could have that mentorship, even if it was a little bit more distance, like in Boise, but you still had somebody that you felt like you could lean on for a majority of all your questions. And you weren't just like
huge.
Out in the wild.
Yeah, it was huge. So grateful.
Yeah.
So grateful for that.
So as things have transitioned to a different market that we're in, what challenges have you faced now? Is there any difficulties that you've kind of dealt with?
Yeah. So again, with the lack of, I guess, lead source that I had at my previous brokerage and knowing about the market we were about to come into.
Yep.
And knowing how I wanted to grow, take all those things into consideration. That's where I started really kind of like wanting to maybe look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Cause I was getting nervous a little bit.
Yeah.
I was going to have to rely solely on the people that I knew and the people that I associated with and less on the lead rotation. Cause it was just slowing down like crazy.
Dramatically. Yep.
And so in preparation for that, that's kind of when I think you and I got in touch and we talked and you talked about what you've got going on here. And it was very attractive for obviously more leads.
Yeah.
That was huge, but then loved what you were saying about growth and potential growth opportunity and where your vision was.
Yeah.
And it started at an event that you hosted, Shift Happens.
Yep.
It was an awesome event, came to it.
You're the best thing that's come out of that event.
I sat in the front row. You had some great speakers, some people that kind of opened my eyes to what real estate was really about and what was out there.
Yeah.
Because the brokerage I was at was great. I loved the tight-knit community, but I did not know about the systems with having, back-end stuff, TC and teams and what that looked like and what that felt like and the potential growth that offered.
Yeah.
And so my mind was blown after that. And I was like, I need to go and pick this guy's brain.
Yeah.
And so, then we met. And as far as since then with the market, my worries are gone. I mean, we're just kind of adjusting with it at this point.
For sure.
We're still going.
I'm
killing it.
Yeah.
So.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the team. Like a lot of agents are struggling in the market that we're in. And I feel like we're just getting ramped up. Like we're already off to a better year than we've had previous years. And I do remember you coming to that event, you had your pinnacle
polo,
you're tucked in. Yeah. And I was like, man, this guy's legit. You sat front row. You were engaged, you pay attention. You introduced yourself. Like, I was like, there's a lot of potential. I saw a lot of potential in you. And so I'm glad that we had that interaction. I'm glad that you're actually able to come to that event. We're trying to do more stuff like that. Cause I'm like, I think there's a lot of agents that are out there that need help, that need support, that need a mentor to help them take their business to the next level, but they don't know who to go to. They don't know who to talk to. They like you, maybe they don't know what else is out there. And so they're like, my situation's, I'm comfortable.
Right.
I'll just stay here and keep doing what I'm doing. But we want to continue to do things like that to open the eyes of several people and hopefully bring value, and not for them to join our team, but just to make our real estate industry better.
Right.
It's like, I've seen so many new agents represent clients that like I wish you had a mentor, somebody that you could ask for because his contract is terrible.
Right.
You're not doing a service for your client.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think, we're super, fortunate, I think, to have you. And I'm really glad that you came to that event. What's been your most exciting experience, or what have you enjoyed most about being in real estate?
It's kind of cliche to say, but the people. I love dealing with people, and there's a lot of satisfaction and pride that comes with being able to help people on one of the biggest decisions that they'll make in their life, if not the biggest.
Yeah.
First time home buyers and educating people on stuff that there's nothing better. And so I really, really enjoy that aspect of it. Being able to help friends and get the question every time I see someone, how's the market?
Yep.
Like, I love it because I know that I can help someone and provide value.
Yeah.
So I really like that aspect. The other thing that I like about what we're doing here and what I've prided myself in attempting to do is I think we all know that the real estate industry and real estate agents kind of have a bad rep.
Oh yeah.
I've wanted to change that from day one. I wanted to be opposite of what people thought about, and I hope I've done a good job at that. But I've been told that I have, and that's super fulfilling as well.
For sure. I think that's it's one of our team mottos. Make real estate more human.
Love it,
because it's become such a transactional thing, and there's so much shady stuff that goes on in our industry that a lot of consumers don't see, but we see on the back end, and it just drives me nuts. And sometimes I just want to put people on blast.
Right.
But I don't.
Yep.
We report people, and hopefully those situations get resolved. But it's something that I'm like, we need to shed more transparency on the real estate market. As agents, we should be educating our clients on exactly how the process works. Lenders should be educating their clients on exactly how the process works. And I'm even trying to be a push for that. Like, help a buyer understand closing costs, help them understand their interest rate. A lot of lenders will they'll change one lender will come in with a lower interest rate, but it's because they've built in, their closing costs are $4,000 higher because they bought down the interest rate for the client essentially and just kicked up their closing costs. And it's it's in the line items, but the client doesn't really know that. And they're not really communicating that to the client. And so I'm just there's a lot of things that I just want to help educate people with, that shouldn't be a secret,
right?
Should just be transparent.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we're trying to change. And that's why I keep doing videos and hopefully educating people and doing, really basic info on what are closing costs and what are interest rates. Cause our goal is to try to make agents have a better reputation and hopefully, if anything, help our team have the best reputation here in our marketplace.
I think we're doing a pretty dang good job.
That's what we're trying for. Okay, to wrap things up though, is there anything that you want to share with the audience? Anything that you've learned along your, managing journey or entrepreneur journey or real estate journey that you think would be of value that you want to share?
I think to kind of encompass everything that we've talked about, I would say in general, typically you go to high school, and the first thing they're going to tell you to do is go to college.
Yep.
And then you're going to go to college. The first thing they're going to tell you to do is get hired by a job. My suggestion to someone that's in high school, just at getting out of high school, is find someone who is doing what you think you want to do and go shadow them before you commit to college and figure out to do something like that. And then same with, if real estate is something you want to do, shadow it. Come find out what it's really about before you commit to it.
100%.
But then when you do commit, go all in. And if you can go all in on something that you're passionate about, or something that you choose to do, it'll pay off. You can find success in so many different avenues and jobs and careers and all that stuff. For me, it's real estate because I'm passionate about it and I love it and I shadowed it and I did my homework, and it's super fulfilling, but it's backwards to society right now. I just say switch it up a little bit.
No, I love that. And I would encourage you guys, like Jace said, find that career that you're interested in, go shadow it, and make a decision not based on income. I see so many people that are like, oh, I'm going to become a doctor because they can make X amount, or I'm going to become this because they can make this, they have this income earning potential. It's if you're great at anything, you can typically make a good living.
Right.
And much, you're going to be a lot happier when you're closer to the end of your life, knowing that you spent your life working on something that you enjoyed or found value in. You're not going to remember how much money you made.
Right.
It's you're going to look back on your deathbed and think that was my life here on earth. Did I leave an impact or provide value, or was it beneficial? You're not going to be like, oh, I wish I would have made an extra $1 million.
Right.
It's the last thing you're going to be worried about. So find something you are passionate about. Find something you're passionate about. It's very cliche. Everybody says that nowadays. But I encourage you, if you're looking at a job and you're like, hey, this makes me 100, this makes me 60. If you're happier with the 60, just figure out how your life can look from a financial standpoint. What can you do to still have a comfortable life doing the job that you enjoy?
Right. Or find a life that you want to have. Go find someone who's living that life.
What are they doing?
Find out what they're doing
100%.
and see if you can find joy in doing that as well.
I love that. It's a great advice.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Jace, for coming and being a part of this.
Thanks for having me.
If you guys have questions or you want to follow Jace, it's Jace Wright on Instagram, or what's your Instagram?
Yeah, so Jace.Wright Realtor, I believe.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right.
We'll put it on the link.
Yeah,
or
we'll put it in the description. Jace Wright. Also, if you want to see his beautiful face, just drive down Shell. You'll see it on a big old billboard. So, all right. Till next time, guys. Thank you.
Don't listen to people who lose or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed. Go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger and start taking some of the blame. Let me put you on game. Control your emotions. Most of the time, it's really not worth it. Don't be ashamed and beat yourself up for not being perfect.